Hey everybody, welcome to Review with Me, your review guide of shows, movies, and everything in between. Be sure to click the like button, hit that notification bell, and subscribe to the channel. Now, let's get on with this review. Hey y'all, let's get into another review. This is The Later Daters, Season 1, Episode 1. Now, The Later Daters is about a dating show specifically focused on baby boomers and Generation X people. So those who are 50 and above are the main idea, the main topic in this show. And it's a pretty cute show. It's 8 episodes long. It's a nice bingeable watch. It's on Netflix. So go ahead and check it out. We're going to go ahead and get into Anise. Anise is our first character, quote unquote, of this show. She is 62 years old. She is just a well-to-do looking black woman. She prioritizes fitness. She has an active lifestyle. She looks good. And you know how people be like, you don't look your age, or when I think of a 62-year-old, I don't think of this type of appearance. That's what they say when it comes to her, when it comes to Anise, because she does look good for her age. And it's not to sound like an insult, right? You know, people are like, oh, what does that mean for my age? It means when you're of a particular age, you're meant to look decrepit, right? But in this case, she does not. We learn about her initially that she was married 3 times. She has been single the last 20 years. And that's our initial introduction to her. We're going to get into more of Anise in a bit. I'm just going to give y'all that. Boom, we get into Suzanne. Suzanne, she is 63 years old. Now, no shot to Suzanne. But she does look like she's 63. Right? I would even give her maybe like 57, 61, but I wouldn't necessarily give her the compliment of she doesn't look like, and there's no shot that she looks good. She looks a good looking woman, but that's the difference. But maybe that's just because she's she's white, right? And Anise is black. And I think that is a big factor here. But low key, I do think Anise got some work done. I do. Her boobs look like they're not natural. And, you know, it's her body, her choice. I'm just pointing that out. Nonetheless, Suzanne is 63 years old. She has a big personality, big smile, and big hair. She is an effervescent type of woman. I think she really demands or dominates the room in a sense. I think she has a great personality, very positive. Now, her daughter, I find her to be a bit strange. She has this weird smile that's like if y'all could kind of picture what I'm saying right now, then you'll understand what I mean. But she has this flat line lip that just makes me feel, I don't know. Maybe she's just a little off. But nonetheless, it seems like she's very attached. Let's just say that, attached. So I do wonder if she has her own situation. Like, is she in a relationship? Is she married? I don't know. That hasn't been said. But nonetheless, so with every person that we meet on this show, they're accompanied with a loved one who is encouraging them to be a part of this process. So rewind to Anise. Anise is accompanied with her daughter, who is an adult. I don't know how old she is, but she's probably in her 40s, it looks like. And she's married from what I can see on her ring finger. And it looks like she is the one who is encouraging her mom to be a part of this process because she loves her mom and wants to see her in this happy space. And for Suzanne, her daughter is also the one encouraging her to be a part of this process. Boom. Let's get to Nate. Nate, he is a black man, 56 years old, was married for 16 years, but got divorced and has been single. I don't know exactly how long. I don't remember them saying that. Has 2 daughters. He's very neat. He is very neat, very tidy. I do want to say he's probably OCD, but you know, a lot of black people of that generation don't believe in getting checked out. Don't believe in getting diagnosed. But I promise you, as someone who is not a diagnosis or none, whatever, I definitely think he does. I definitely think he does. Because there's one thing to say, I like things in order, but sometimes, like for me, with me, I know that I do like things in order, but there are times when it takes me a while to get that in order. Sometimes I will have a pile of clothes on my single chair in my room, and I'll get to it, right? As for Nate, he's not... Like, he doesn't have that. There's no space. There's no day or two in between where he'll have a pile of anything. It's clean. It's tidy. And he doesn't play about that. And I think that is the large part of why he is still single. Though, yes, he's been married for 16 years. I do feel like that is a factor that could contribute to the tension in his relationships. And we'll talk about that in a later episode because you'll see how that plays a role. We're introduced to Jackie. Jackie is his ex-girlfriend. And I say that lightly because apparently... when they were in college together, they hooked up briefly and she got pregnant. She wanted to have a baby. She was hoping and praying to the stars and boom, she got pregnant. So it's not like they had a relationship. They weren't together long term. They were just hooking up and a child came out of that. A daughter came out of that. So now they're just friends. And she's very close, which is fine because they share a child, but it's to the point where I wonder if any of his potential love interests, like outside of her, would feel threatened or annoyed of how close she is. Like, she'll just pop up to the house. She'll say, I was in the neighborhood. She's sitting right on his lap. Basically, that's how close she is next to him on the couch. I don't know. It seems like she is supportive during this process from what I noticed, but she's just very, very close. I feel like they have an understanding, if you know what I mean. I feel like they have an understanding. Okay, so now we're introduced to Logan. Logan is the dating coach of this show. She is pretty dope. I like her. I really do. I find her work to be intentional and just thoughtful at the same time. Like, she doesn't say these sayings or these catchy phrases. It seems like she's educated to be a coach when it comes to dating. So that's her goal. That's her role here. She's the dating coach. She studied psychology at Harvard. She ran Google's behavior science unit. She's also an author of How to Not Die Alone, which I find that to be interesting because I don't know if you guys watched that show on Hulu called How to Not Die Alone, starring what's her name? That girl from Insecure. She's the funny one, y'all know what I'm talking about. But nonetheless, she is a great person to have here because I find her work to be intentional and she really focuses on the needs, the desires, and the purpose of each person, right? And who will fit with whom. So, and I think she coaches them really well. Like, she's great. I think she should be on every show, honestly, because at this point, let's circle back to Married at First Sight. We need a coach. We need Logan there because Pastor Cal, Dr. Pepper, and Dr. Pia, it's not working. Clock out. Let her clock in and be the person for the help and the aid of these couples. But anyway, I digress. So Logan meets with Suzanne, and as she's talking to her, she's not just sitting there looking at her or talking about surface level things. She's getting to the meat and potatoes. She has a journal and her notebook. Her journal and a pen. She's taking notes. And I wish I could look at or see in a zoomed in fashion exactly what she's writing down, but she's writing down something. She is taking notes. She's actively listening. She's active, and she's just, I like her. Logan is dope. Anyway, so she's taking notes. We're learning about Suzanne, that her previous husband, whom she was married to for many, many years, he passed away. And since that passing, she's been here looking for love. Now, a funny thing about Suzanne is I am in love with Matthew McConaughey. I'm trying to get her accent, but she loves Matthew McConaughey. And I feel like, just to make things funny, Matthew McConaughey should come up on maybe the second season, or maybe she should find him and they should take a picture together, something like that, because the way she has name dropped his name throughout this whole season, y'all, I like Matthew McConaughey too, but guys, golly, I am in love with Matthew McConaughey. Okay, Suzanne. Okay. So Suzanne is an optometrist, which is an eye doctor, in case you don't know. And she loves butts. Just a kind of funny fact, because throughout her home, she lives in a nice home. There are these butt focused art pieces, which is interesting. Anyway, she's a big, Georgia State. I'm not a football girl. Nothing against it, but I don't really follow them like that. Shout out to the Patriots though, because I'm from Boston. But she's a big Georgia fan, and that's a big deal for her. So much so that she will not date you if you are not in support of that team, which is like, okay, maybe that's like a Southern thing, but all right, girl, whatever. Anyway, this show is based in Atlanta, at least for this season. I don't know if there'll be a second season, but this season is based in Atlanta. All right, so Suzanne gets on a date with Frank. Frank is 63 years old. He is 8 years single, divorced, 2 kids, and an attorney. You know how, like, what are your 5 facts? My age, I've been single for 10 years and I have 5 kids. It's like, you gotta like spit it out. It's like, what are his numbers? What are his facts? That's how we have it all down packed for all of these people here. But nonetheless, that's his Carfax. He greets her with flowers, which is pretty sweet. And I noticed that to be a trend amongst many of the daters here on this show. I guess it's common in their generation to greet their date with flowers. But that has definitely gone and been lost. And that's flowers. Niggas don't know what flowers are, right? Like, but yeah, that's a thing amongst that generation. So he meets her. They're at this little winery. It looks like it's like a little wind down spot. And what I like about each couple that they have here, they pair them on the screen with old school photos of them when they were young, and they match them next to each other. So it's kind of cute. You could see how they look like when they were in their younger years. So it's just a cute little aesthetic there. He says a comment. He says, quote, "A lot of people don't like me sometimes. I don't know why." And I find that to be interesting. Maybe it could be because of his line of work. Oftentimes with attorneys, they may not be as much of a people person. They may create enemies because they're trying to win a case. And they maybe defend people who should not get defense. But nonetheless, that is what he says. I notice Suzanne doesn't really get too deep in that. She just says, well, you're an attorney. You know, a lot of people don't like attorneys. So I guess that was, a quick little joke. But that made me wonder, like, is he liked? Like, does he have any friends? Does he have a community around him who care for him, who love him? And it's one thing to not have a lot of friends. That's fine. I don't care about that. But, like, do you have a community of people who love you and care for you? So while they're seated, he's like sitting a bit uncomfortably. He stands up and he says that he just can't really sit still for too long. He says he has a lot of energy. And Suzanne's like, oh, so you like to stand. Okay, I'm just going to sit down. You like to stand. Suzanne, just let the man, anyway, I thought he was a handsome fella, but I don't know if I saw a chemistry between them. It seemed like he was a little nervous. She had to start the conversation. She was the one who said, well, I was listening to a podcast with Matthew McConaughey. Yeah, I love Matthew McConaughey. Suzanne, I'm telling you, this is going to be a theme throughout this season, okay? So bear with me with the accent. But yeah, so she talks about that. The flowers that he greeted her with, each flower, each rose had a significance to indicate, okay, this is for our first date, and this will be for our second date, hopefully. This will be our third date, fourth date, etc. So each flower had a different color in symbolism for a later date, which was very cute and thoughtful. But yeah, this doesn't really go far. She was sweet on the date, but it kind of just, I feel like it falls a little flat. Okay, so now we get back to Anise. Anise is met with Logan at her home, and yes, Logan visits her at her house, and Logan's with her journal, her pen, and she's taking notes. Anise gives her some background of who she is. When she was married the first time to her first husband, who's the father of her 2 children, she talked about how they married, they were each other's high school sweethearts, and they were together for 11 years. But unfortunately, he passed away due to an accident from work. And since then, she wanted to continue to raise their children as they discussed. And he was someone who saw the potential in her and pretty much motivated her to be the best that she could be. So even though he passed, she still continued to fulfill her potential, so much so that she has her doctorate degree. She made a note to tell Logan that what she noticed in her dating experience is some of the men that she would encounter, they would feel intimidated by her success, and they would be intimidated specifically by her doctorate, which I thought was interesting. I thought it was interesting because why? Why is that a big deal? And look, I'm not saying that that's not a real experience that happens. Like, there are men who are intimidated by their women or women in general for various reasons. But I just find it to be so strange to me. Like, how are you in your 60s and say you're dating someone around that age range? Are those men still what is to be intimidated about? Like, what is it about having your advanced degree that would make the other person feel less than? That's just so weird to me, but that sucks that she had to experience that. So she wants to know from the gate, like, is this something that you can handle, right? Like, is my success intimidating to you? I don't know, I just feel like if you're in your 60s and your 50s and you're still dealing with some insecurity to that extreme, that me having my doctorate is a big deal to you, then okay, like, at this point, I'll just go my separate way, that's just weird. What else? So she says she also notices, or she's been told, that she self-sabotages. And what I noticed throughout this conversation, not once was it brought up about her 2 marriages post her first marriage. Okay, she only referenced her first marriage, seeming to be that he was the only one that mattered, right? He was the only one that really imprinted upon her life and her heart. So what about the other 2? And how long did those other 2 marriages last? What about Anise? Like, I'm trying to understand, what is it about Anise, though? So, because I think more so when women say, oh, he's intimidated by my success, yes, there are men who are intimidated by the success of women and in specific areas, right? Maybe she has an advanced degree and I only have my GED, or maybe she has multi-unit homes and I only have my apartment. Like, just little things, like, well, big things, but nonetheless, there are areas in which that could be true. But I don't think we talk enough about how there are women who would go out of their way to make that their personality. Ooh, bear with me, y'all. Hello? Go ahead and like this video, subscribe, and share this video with a friend. But listen to me now. There are women who will make that their personality. Your degrees, yes, there are achievements that you have sacrificed, that you have put in time and effort, and you should be praised for it. But I do think there are some women who make that their whole personality, and they have nothing else about themselves that shine. And it just makes me wonder, like, dang, is that where your self-worth lies? Is that where your confidence lies? Is that where you think, that's who you are as a person? Because if you didn't have that degree, are you not as confident as you are now? That just makes me wonder. So I'm wondering, when she says she's been told that she self-sabotages, and then she says guys will be intimidated by her success and that the fact that she has a doctorate, is it because she makes that her personality and she boasts about it? Or she may make the man feel emasculated, right? Like, sometimes women, sometimes we have a way of using our words to come across condescending, like, oh, well, I got my degree, baby, I got this. Or, like, I don't know, there are some ways in which she could have used her degree to purposely intimidate a man. And I think that is something that she has to look inward on. Rather than, oh no, it's because I have my degree, that's why he doesn't want to be with me. Is it that? Or you are making that your whole personality, right? Is it that? Or you emasculate him every second he's in front of you? That just makes me wonder. Okay, so now we're back with Suzanne and Frank. So during this date, Frank is, sharing a bit about himself. He shares with her that he has 2 children, and both of them are considerably young. One is 19, the other is 16. So he's a junior in high school, okay? And Suzanne was like, stop the track. She was like, yeah, no. And that's because she does not want to raise children anymore. She's done. She's been there. She's done that. And she does not want to be a part of that lifestyle anymore. And you know what? I can't be mad at her for that. I feel like that's fair, especially when you're someone who is loving the freedom that is when you have adult children. And she seems to be very free in her life now that she's retired. She doesn't want to have to deal with, like, oh, did my stepchild go to school today and do his homework? Like, I don't give a damn. So that made me wonder about Frank. Like, what's going on with the mothers of these 2 sons, or mother? I don't know if he has multiple, but it just makes me wonder. Are they young? Because for him to have a junior in high school and a 19-year-old, and he's 63. Okay, I mean, maybe he just started younger. I mean, started older in his age to have children. But nonetheless, that put a stop to everything. With Suzanne, I don't know if she's like a heavy drinker or she doesn't have her license. Maybe she can't drive. Every time she's on a date, again, this is episode 1 we're reviewing right now. Every time she's on a date, she is picked up by her daughter. Her daughter, the weird one who I was telling y'all about, who just has this like bland face. I don't know how to describe her, but she just has like it's just, I don't know. She just has this strange smile, just very creepy. Like if you see her smile late at night, I would go the other way. I would turn around and run for your life. That's the type of smile she has. But nonetheless, her daughter ends up picking her up, and because of this, she meets Frank, and she does this like, like, girl, get out of my face. Okay, so now we get into Nate some more. So Logan meets Nate at his home, his tidy ass. When I tell you, there is no dust in his home. There's no room for dust. There's no placement. There's no space for it. It is clean. And look, I appreciate cleanliness, but my gosh, it's a bit extreme, to say the least. Nonetheless, she's out with her journal and her pen, and she's taking out some notes. She's learning about him. He tells her about Jackie and how they came to be. And what's interesting about the story was, right, they cut to Jackie talking about it, which I talked about earlier, but I'll just give a brief recap. Jackie says that she told him she wanted to have, I don't know if she told him, but she said out loud to somebody, she said, I want to have a child. I want to have my first child by the time I turned 24. And she was 23 at the time. And that night, her and Nate hooked up. And she said she swore she saw a shooting star in the sky. First, I'm trying to understand, were y'all hooking up inside or outside? Because if you were hooking up inside, how are you able to see a shooting star so clearly? Like, do you have windows on your roof? Like, what was going on? But nonetheless, that's what she claims. And boom, she got pregnant. His form of the story was, apparently, she told him that she was on birth control, and he was aware of that. So he was thought, okay, cool, I could shoot the club up. Shoot the club up, baby. I can shoot the club up, and we're good. And we're good. No oopsie baby here. But oops, a baby came. Oops, a baby came. So as he's telling Logan this story, she responds with, oh, so she's still in your life after this betrayal? And I was like, oh, so are you promoting absence in Black fatherhood? Like, what are we saying, Logan? Yes. What do you mean? Was he supposed to be like, oh, you betrayed my trust, therefore I'm not going to be there for my child? What? It's just such a weird response to that. Nate responded and said, well, yeah, I wasn't not going to be there for my daughter. So, like, I'm glad that he shut that down. And it's clear that he's a stand-up guy. So I appreciated that response. But yeah, Logan was like, so you still had her in your... Yes. Because we now have a life that we share together for the rest of our lives. Period. Like, what are we talking about? Anyway, we also learned about Nate that he was in the Army. I forgot which branch, but he flew out the plane as part of his mission and fell on his back, and that led to him being discharged, and he is now handicapped. Basically, he walks with a limp, like on his back, and most times he says he's in pain, but he has good posture and he's able to look well-to-do because he works out often. Fitness is active in his life, which is pretty awesome, but some things he can't do, like he can't hike, he can't, and we'll learn about that later, but some things he can't do. So he talks about that, and that's going to be a theme. That's going to be a theme with him throughout this season, okay? So he talks about that. All right, so now we get into him talking about his romantic relationship. So yes, Jackie, that story with Jackie. Now, after Jackie, he was engaged to a woman, and during the engagement, he find out that she got pregnant with another man's baby, which is like, wait, what? Like, that is so wild. So yeah, that didn't work out. Then afterwards, he gets married to a woman, and they lasted for 16 years. And he says he describes that marriage or that wife that he had as someone whom he fell in love with for the first time ever. Like, he never loved anyone prior to her, which was kind of a hurtful thing to say. I mean, if that's his truth, that's his truth. But dang, if I was Jackie, or if I was the even though the ex-fiance cheated on him, but nonetheless, to say that is like, okay. But yeah, so he's talking about those situations, and there we have Logan taking notes. So we learn with Nate that he has trust issues. He says trust is earned with him, and the only woman he trusts is his grandmother. And that's a big thing to say. So Logan's assignment for him is to lead with vulnerability. open with vulnerability, approach your date with that attitude in mind to be vulnerable. So he's taking notes just like Logan is, which is okay. And she also makes a point to say that, when two people are coming together, that's two companies merging, right? It was a great analogy she had. But she basically said that, right? Two companies merging, and it's hard. But it's especially hard when one person is coming across as if he's perfect. And with Nate, that is the way he comes across. That's the way he comes across. He's very much so this just well to do, well put together type of person. And it may make women feel intimidated. It may make the woman feel incomparable to him because, oh man, he got his shit together. So he's like, okay, he's taking notes, and it seems like he's receptive. But we'll get to it. Let me leave the butt for later, because with Nate, I feel like a lot of these daters here in this season, and I'm hoping there'll be a next season because the show was pretty nice, but a lot of them played in our faces. I think they just wanted a good time. I think they just wanted to be on TV and not on some clout. I don't know. I did hear that Nate was on a previous dating show on TV. So this must be a thing that some people do. Like, hey, I'm going to be on another show. But I do think that not all of them, if any of them, were serious about truly finding the love that they're yearning for. Because one, they are of a particular age, and I don't think and that's me just thinking out loud, but I don't feel like when you're of a particular age, I don't think you still have that mindset of, I hope to be married for the rest of my life, for the love of my life. I don't think they have that Disney fairy tale idea of love anymore. It's like, okay, I've been there, I've done that. Right now in my life, if it happens again, cool, but if it doesn't, I still want to have my fun. I think that's what a lot of them are on, and they don't want to admit that, and that's cool, but stop playing my face. So we're back to Nate. Nate is on his date, his blind date. He is on a date with a woman named Latricia. She is 56 years old, never been married, no kids. She's a senior IT professional. And she's also worked in the Army. So they had that in common, which is pretty cool. She's big on fitness as well. And she's a good looking woman. Nate greets her with a bouquet of flowers, which again, this is a theme throughout this season amongst this generation of men. They're big on chivalry, which is something that needs to come back in full force, but I digress. They're on their date. They're talking a little bit about themselves. I noticed with Nate, he does do the assignment that is expected of him to lead with vulnerability. So when he shares about his accident or his handicap from the accident, I felt like he did it in a way that was very quick. Like, yeah, because I wasn't airborne, I left with a couple of injuries, and he didn't give enough details, which I thought was interesting. I think maybe that's because it's his first time really opening up with such vulnerable information that maybe his heart was racing. Maybe he didn't feel comfortable yet. So he's probably like, okay, look, I did the assignment, but I didn't really do it in a way that was so vulnerable. I just kind of just like ran by it. Like, hey, by the way, I fell out of the plane. Hey, by the way, I have a little injury. Like, okay, can you slow down? Can you talk to me about how has that affected you? Like, I don't know. It just was such a quick, it was like a throw up of vulnerability. Like, I just like, okay, Nate. Okay, so we flash back to Suzanne and her daughter, who are now together after the date. They're still at the date location. Frank has left, and again, Allison is just, my goodness, I don't want to see her face. Okay, anyway, they're so weird because I guess at the end of every day, they have to FaceTime Logan, the dating coach. So they FaceTime her. And you know how maybe it's like an older people thing, but Allison was doing it too, which is why I think she's a little off. So they FaceTime Logan, and as soon as Logan picks up, they're both like, so Suzanne and her daughter, they're like, hi! Sorry, my dog's like, what, is she okay? I'm sorry. They're both like, hi! Like surprised that Logan picked up the call that she's scheduled to have picked up at this time. Like, what are we talking about? Hi! Like, oh my gosh, if y'all, because I hope you guys are watching it. But it was just a funny expression. And in that moment, Logan was like, hi. Like, she did not meet them with that same response, which is what I appreciate about Logan. I think Logan is a real deal. I think she's the real deal. I like her energy. But yes, let's go on. Hi! So we're back on a date with Latricia and Nate. Nate is asking her questions. So he starts off by asking her, do you pray? Do you pray? Which was, I feel like, a setup. It was a setup question. And the reason why I say that is apparently he didn't like her response, which was yes, she prays. Well, she said absolutely. And she was so taken aback by this question because she was reacting very surprised. She was like, oh, I got to check this list off my box, making it seem like, you know, she has a checklist and she's checking off things that she appreciates about this guy who is meeting her checklist, right? So him asking her that question, and then when she says absolutely, he then led them into prayer before they eat their meal. Which, hear me out, y'all. Look, I'm someone who grew up in the church. I'm not necessarily churchy now anymore, but I grew up in the church. And yes, that's a common thing to do, to pray before you eat, pray before you start a party, pray before you start a meeting, pray like you invite God into the space. I've never found it attractive when men would do this as a part of the date. The reason why I say that is I find it to be performative. I find it to be just fake as hell. I really do, because nigga, you're not praying before you eat. Cut it out. Or even, okay, let's say you do, right? Let's say you do, and this is something that you do regularly. Okay, but right after you finish that meal, you're back to cussing up a storm. You're back to slinging that dick around like this. Like, you're not living in a way that makes me believe you're this stringent Christ follower. Like, I just don't buy it. And I think oftentimes men who would present that they pray before they eat and they would lead prayers before our date, I just thought that was just like performative. Like, hey, how can I prove to her that I'm this upstanding? I feel like you're just trying to prove something, and it lacks genuine energy. Later on, we find out later in this episode, right after the date, they're about to wrap it up anyway, so I'll just get to that part. He said that was a turnoff. Basically, that was a check off his list in a negative way when he found out that she prays, and that is the reason because he sees it as, well, she's more religious and I'm more spiritual. And I'm like, you set her up. You set her up, because why else would you pray before you eat? I've never met a spiritual, people be like, oh, I'm spiritual, I'm not religious. I don't meet spiritual people who pray before they eat. That's more of a religious person thing to do. People who go to church, people who, really not live by necessarily. They may live by the word, but that's more associated with those who are more in that particular lifestyle, rather than those who are spiritualists. They don't necessarily go about life in the way that religious people do. And praying before you eat is not something that I've noticed in my experience. It's not something that spiritualists do often, if at all. Anyway, so that was just a setup. And I feel like it speaks to Nate and how he finds ways to set the women up. And we'll see that some more. But he finds ways to set them up to make it a sabotage. So just like with Anise, how she talks about she is the saboteur. So is Nate. Nate is the same way. So we're back with Suzanne. Suzanne is back at home with Allison by her side, clinging to her like a damn. Are you a Siamese twin? What's going on? Anyway, Frank, when they ended their date, when they were abruptly disturbed by Allison, who had to come in and pick up her mom. Apparently she's her chauffeur. I don't know. Nonetheless, Frank didn't get her number at that time. So Frank, as what older people do, they find you on Facebook. So he found Suzanne on Facebook, and as he said in the message, he was stalking her page, and he noticed that they have mutual friends. He sends her a message and says that he would love to see her again for another date, and it was a nice, cute message. Suzanne is not interested really in a second date, primarily because he's not a Georgia Bulldogs fan. Like, girl, see, that's what I'm talking about. Like, this show is so unserious. It's not for real. Like, these older people are just here to have a good time, not a long time. And I'm not saying that to be a dig. I'm just saying they had their time of being married, most of them at least, or, just living life. And they want to live the remainder of their years, God willing, with just joy and fun and, some sex. So Allison's like, do you want me to message him back? She's like, no, hold on. Give me some time to think about it. And that's something that I could appreciate about Suzanne, and what I noticed to be a theme throughout this show is with these older people, especially the older women, they take their time. There's no antsy energy. There's no like, I gotta respond. What if he doesn't like me back? What, like, my self-worth, like, they don't come across like that. They're very much established in their identity and who they are, their confidence. And it's like, okay, there's someone else who I could date. He could wait. Like, it's not a big deal. So that was kind of funny. Okay, now let's get with the shits. Let's get with the shits. Anise gets on her date, her first date. She is on a date with a man named George. George is 60 years old. He is 2-time divorced. He has 1 kid, and he's a retired nuclear security guy. George is interesting. George is an interesting character. So he fucks around in Atlanta, but he lives in Chattanooga. And what I mean by that is he tells that on the date, basically, like, he lives in Chattanooga, and then when he wants to have some fun, he goes to ATL and he finds a little hot thing. The thing is with Anise, okay, Anise is a beautiful woman. Don't get me wrong. She's a beautiful woman. She has a nice body. She's well put together. Again, I do think there is some placements there, if you know what I mean. Now, no shoot to her, but she's 62 or 63, right? Yeah, 63. And no, 62. And I just think her breasts are fake. I just think her breasts are, I'm just going to call it a spade. So this idea of like, oh, she's just so naturally, okay, cool. She may be mostly that, but she does have fake boobs. Okay, so her outfit, she has this very short dress on. You can see her legs just all the way up to maybe her inner thigh. That's how short her dress is. And she is don't get me wrong, she's a beautiful woman. But here's the thing. A man like George, as what we could see on this date, he was so taken aback by like, God, like he was, he couldn't contain himself. By the time she walked to the table where he was seated, he couldn't even get up. Like, he was just so taken aback. It made me feel like, okay, is he gonna get up? Is he gonna greet her? He literally rolled his eyes, closed his eyes, and was just so struck by her beauty. And sure, that is something that I'm sure that made her feel good, but I just wonder if Anise is trying to come across unserious to me. I don't know. I just feel like when you dress a certain way, you are attracting a certain energy. You are attracting a certain type of lustful energy. And I'm not trying to go down a whole deeper road. That means you can't blame this. I'm not trying to say, those who are victims of, assault. We're not talking about that. That just came in my head, but I just want to clear that up real quick. Not talking about that. But I'm just saying, on a first date, okay, if you're dressed in a manner that's very, like, her boobs were basically hanging out, very out there, legs all out, short dress, tight dress, I would assume that she's, leading with her sexual energy more. And I think that may be a subconscious thing that she may not even be aware of. Maybe she is aware of it. Maybe she's doing it on purpose. But I think that speaks to her being a self-saboteur, because what is that? What is the point of that? But again, she's of a particular age. I don't think anyone here is really here for a long-term, forever, the rest of my life type of romance. So it is what it is. So on this date, she tells him that she has 3 children. First of all, I missed that part. I said 2 earlier, so I guess she has 3. But I think the 2 that she had are the 2 from her first marriage, and the 3rd one is from another marriage, I believe. But we don't hear too much about, again, like, we don't hear too much about her second or 3rd marriage. So I'm wondering what's up with that. So George, being the unserious guy that he is, he's like, by the same daddy? He literally asked her by the same daddy. And she's like, why would you ask that? And it's just like another check of her noticing, yeah, this guy, I ain't got the time for him. So again, we got George, who lives in Chattanooga but fuck around in Atlanta, verbatim. He said that verbatim. He then proceeds to ask her more questions like, so have you had any work done? And because the way that this episode is edited, we don't see if she directly answers the question. So we don't see her answer the question in the presentation of this episode. But I don't know if she really did answer the question. She just left him on like, okay. Like, she just ignored that question. She did give him a look though. He then asked her, well, prior to that, he asked her, yes, about the whole baby daddy, do you have the same father for all your children? He mentions how he met another woman and she has 3 children, three different baby daddies. And he said how, like, that's an excuse. So like he said like, oh, she gave me an excuse for it. And what's her name? Anise was like, is it an excuse or is it a reason? Like, so there's like different moments in which she is so turned off by some of the things that he says. The waiter comes to the table and asks if you want to try the rolls. And Anise is about to respond. It seems like she's like, ooh, that sounds good. George says, no, we're not going to do the rolls. And he's like, I'm looking out for you. So that made me think, is he big on appearance? Like, okay, my woman has to look a certain type of way. He then proceeds to make the comment, oh, I like my women a little ghetto. And he says that, wearing a blonde wig is his type of appearance that he desires in his women. And he says that she has a little, he could see a little ghetto in Anise. So all in all, this date was not a hit. it pretty much ends at some point. George, of course, he's lusting after her some more. So that's the point that I'm saying. I'm not saying that she needed to dress in a nun outfit for him to stop lusting after her, but I think that's just who he is. But I think it could help in a setting where, okay, I'm not trying to give the impression that I'm maybe not so serious or something. I don't know, but there's something about the way that Anise is dressed makes me feel like, is she aware of the impression that it can make? That's it. Just be mindful of the impression. Nonetheless, she ends the day. She says, well, my ride is outside. Gotta go. And it pretty much ends at that point. So that's the wrap up. That's the review for this episode 1 of The Later Daters. I will see y'all on the next review with me for this show. Make sure you are leaving a review. Share with a friend. Let me know what y'all think about this show. I really enjoy it. Let me know what you think about Anise, George, Suzanne's weird daughter. Let me know. All right, y'all. But goodbye.